morning, everyone, and welcome to Sunday service. It's nice to see you all. And I see a bunch of friends who I haven't yet met. Nice to have you here as well. Thank you. For those who don't know us, I am Nayaswami Daiva, and this is Nayaswami Gangamata. I think I'll start with a reading. This is Whispers from Eternity, Yogananda's book of prayer, demands, and poems. He said we should not go to God as a beggar seeking alms. We should go as God's children demanding a response. So, I think I'm going to read about 30 of them this morning, so hang on. I'm tempted to read about 30 of them. I attuned my life with thine. Now my life has become a long, unbroken inspiration. Thy fountain of bliss refreshes and delights me night and day, whether I be wakeful, fast asleep, or dreaming fondly of thee. Oh, what has become of me? Delight on overwhelming delight, endless, indescribable thrills of divine delight spray unceasingly over me. Oh, aged nectar, wine of centuries, I found thee at last and will taste of thy sweetness forever, forever, forever. You'll notice that he didn't say, now that I have fixed the environment, or saved the economy, or dealt with overpopulation, now I have found thee and can be happy, right? Now that I've gotten revenge, now that I've answered all the worries, now that I've given up my coffee, now I can be happy. There is no moment. There is no condition. There is no circumstance where the grace of God and the presence of God is closer or more distant. Let's meditate on that for about 2 or 3 hours and take the next phrase. Think about that for at least just a moment. Yogananda said, the time for knowing God has come. The time for having intermediaries and interpreters and priests that stand between you and the divine is gone. That this age, the time for knowing God has come. What does that mean? Yogananda said that there are 8 ways in which God manifests divine joy, divine love, peace and calmness, wisdom and power, light and sound. Those 8 things, those are what we seek. In everything we do, those are what we seek. In our friendships, in our relationships, we seek divine love. In our adventuring, in our vacations, we seek joy and freedom. In our efforts, we seek calmness and peace. Nobody gets up in the morning going, everybody wants world peace. Everybody wants harmony and to be able to express that in the midst of daily life. I don't think there's a person on the planet that wakes up in the morning and says, gosh, I think I'd like to become really stupid today. Or, I'd like somebody else to take over my life and dominate and rule. We all want power. We want the power of choice. We want the power of a particular and personal relationship to things. What is renunciation? What is renunciation? Every one of you are doing it. Every one of us is doing it all the time. We're making choice. We're choosing one thing over another or under another. We are choosing to come here on this beautiful summer morning instead of sitting at the local coffee shop sucking down the latest latte and reading the Sunday paper. We are choosing to be kind or be unkind moment by moment. At one level or another, renunciation is simply choosing, is giving up one thing for another. And we're always in that process. True renunciation, as the masters would speak of it, has wisdom involved in it. It's the willingness and the capacity to choose those things which bring lasting happiness, lasting value, lasting meaning, over those things that bring, at best, a transient pleasure or happiness or fulfillment. You know, we are a sincere group. There is nobody in here who has not made some enormous effort in and on behalf of finding truth and finding goodness and wholeness. So let's not just stay theoretical. Let's bring this down into daily moments. You know, the game of Maya is compelling. The dream that God has woven for all of us is remarkably engaging and compelling. And it's no small thing to even remotely think that perhaps the fulfillments of this world are not the answer that we're seeking. It takes billions of years and millions of lives to reach that point. There was a devotee who was talking with Yogananda, and he said, you know, Master, people refer to spiritual masters as masters, just as you might call a conductor of the symphony maestro. It's not a slave master type of relationship. It's a recognition of self-mastery and power and containment and wholeness. And he said, Master, I don't think I have very good karma. And Yogananda became extremely stern immediately, and he said, it takes very, very, very good karma to even think that God might be the answer, to even want God. How many people are just convinced that the next cup of coffee, the next relationship, the next job, the next raise, the next child, the next car, the next house, the next fixing the environment is going to be it, the next raw meal, the next whatever the heck it is, the next yoga posture is going to be the answer to what we're seeking. You know, I was kind of rabid early on, before the path, and I was rabidly engaged in anti-war movements and peace movements and environmental movements and raw food movements and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is some time ago before it became quite the vogue it is now. But I was convinced, for sure, and I think still legitimately, that there was something rotten in Denmark. That there was just something not right. The game was rigged somehow. And I was determined to find it and fix it. And so I got really involved in the raw foods movement, and I lived on a little farm, organic farm down in Northern California. It turns out it was just about 45 minutes away from Ananda Village, which was beneficial long term. But at that point, it wasn't the focus of my attention. The focus of my attention was I would get up every morning at 4 o'clock and milk the cows. And then at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I would return and milk the cows. And these were Jerseys, and they're very lovely, the big brown eyes, and they were just they were just so sweet. And man, I was living the life. You know what I discovered? And Jerseys, by the way, Jerseys, when you get a gallon of milk, and we were pouring it into the glass 1 gallon jars. That those of you who get raw milk from your, who buy into a cow and you get the little glass jars, right? Well, Jerseys, what they do is they're remarkable little creatures. They've been engineered divinely, I think. Some things come from the causal realms all the way down unfiltered. Their milk is one of those things because it's like 30% cream. It is just the richest, nicest, most fat. I realized that you can get fat and you can have a heart attack just as easily on organic milk as you can on inorganic milk. And I noticed something. We were supplying organic foods and stuff, and I noticed something. Not everybody in the organic food movement was happy. Some of them were downright rude and unpleasant. And I realized you could be just as miserable and nasty in, solving things as you could without. And I realized that something, again, was not right, was not it. Is it good to do organic foods? I think so. Is it good to be anti-pesticides? Probably most of the time. GMOs, are they a concern? Oh God. There was a there was a little cartoon I saw, a drawing, and it had a two-headed farmer and a single-headed farmer standing side by side, and it said, 2 out of 3 farmers vote for GMOs. I think we have real issues and real concerns on this planet, and I think they are well worth. If you're going to wake up in the morning and not just meditate all day, I think there are some things that probably are worth paying attention to and doing with our lives that can bring our own lives and the lives of those around us deeper into harmony with how God made the world, how the world is made, and because there's needless pain that comes from being out of tune with that. When we are unkind with each other, and it's just a choice, it's just a place to put energy. When we're unkind with each other, we suffer. It's miserable. When we're kind with each other, even when it's inconvenient, when we're kind, we just feel better. When we work with nature, it's more durable. It's more lasting. When we don't, it tends to be fairly short-lived. And that's what our entire planet is facing, is a bunch of really enthusiastic, short-lived decisions. And we don't know as a planet how to find our way back out, and it's particularly complicated by the amount of enthusiasm of a fairly large cadre of people to perpetuating those patterns. There was the head of Nestle Corporation, which is, I think, Swiss or French, Swiss, who got captured on video. I cannot believe this man did this willfully and willingly put this on video, speaking that water should be commercialized, that mankind does not have, and creatures, I assume also, do not have a right to water, that water should be in the hands of a very, very few organizations for the benefit of everybody. Anybody get nervous about this? They are one of the largest corporations on the planet. There's a lot of people working for that man, and probably going to do his bidding if he has his way, and be trying to capture the rights to water. I think there are things worth working with. But if you fight against things, you will find yourself basically mud wrestling. Those who hold somebody else down are held themselves down by that very act. Swami Kriyananda, direct disciple of these great masters in Paramahansa Yogananda, founder of Ananda, he said, I never fight against anything. I always fight for something. And fighting for things leaves us free. And it enlists, eventually, the goodwill and understanding of those around us. We should fight for things. We should renounce. Self-effort is needed. Self-effort in anything is needed. The world, if you don't do anything, the world will do things for you. If you don't make the decisions in your own life, others will be happy to make those decisions for you. If you don't make decisions about the most central things in life, the daily decisions on how you will spend your day and how you will prioritize, you get the harvest of not making the decision. It's okay. It probably won't be pleasant long term, but it's okay. It's a choice. The masters come and they tell us. They come in the Festival of Light. Each week we read from the Festival of Light. We read the entire Festival of Light. It's a ceremony that speaks of man's descent away from God and the return. And it talks about the fact that the masters come, that at some point we get tired of the deep disappointments of life, the anguishing monotony, the fact that everything that we try ends up, we end up holding an empty bag. There's just nothing there at the end of it. Organic milk is not the answer. It isn't the answer. Getting rid of pesticides, sorry team, is not the answer. It's a good thing, but it's not the answer. Getting rid of nukes is not the answer. I was really into anti-nukes. Oh man. And it's a good thing. I think we've got to grow up about how we handle energy problems and issues. But simply getting rid of nukes doesn't make you happy. It doesn't solve the problem. The problem isn't those things. The problem is internal. And getting up in the morning, the masters come. They are God's response to us and our yearning. A friend was speaking, somebody was speaking with a friend of mine, counseling. And the person said to my friend who was counseling her, said, you know, I think God's trying to tell me something. And there was this kind of deafening silence in the room. And my friend looked at her and said, honey, God's always trying to tell us something. The question isn't whether God's trying to tell us something. Are we listening? Are we listening? That's the issue. That's the question. God is never farther away. Joy, love, wholeness. They're never farther away than they are right now, never closer than right now. If you're not saturated in joy, if that poem, oh, endless delight on delight, is not your reality, it's not because it isn't there. It's because you don't know how to listen. So God comes to us in human form so we can see what it looks like. We can get something to attune to. This is how you live. This is how you stay in tune with the flow of divine grace. This is how it works. And then, thank goodness, they also come not only as an example, but also to give teachings so that we know how to behave so that we have what they have. Isn't that lovely? Isn't that great? But then we have to do the next thing. We actually have to do it. Damn. Because if we don't do anything different, nothing different will happen. So they say, what did they say? They say things like Jesus said, the kingdom of God is within you. What the heck does that mean? Well, silence is the altar of spirit. Stillness. You have to go inside. Be still and know. Another quote from the Bible. You have to start to do the things that get us in tune with spirit. And there's lots of reasons. We could give you the scientific reasons why it's like the way it is and stuff. But the simple fact is, until you become still, until you meditate, until you become inward, you're stuck on the alternating waves of up and down, yummy, yucky, oh, this is great, this is terrible, and it's just never going to change. We have to go inside. There is a, I think it was the Greeks. Who had the fates? Was it the Greeks or the Romans? I think it was the Greeks. The Greeks, okay. There was a thing, they considered the fates to be, I think, goddesses. But basically, there was always this thing when the fates would take an unfriendly interest in somebody's lives. Anybody ever have that happen? The fates kind of take an unfriendly interest, and they just kind of pass you from one to the next one. This overwhelming thing happens, and you go, oh my God. And you just start to get through that, and they pass you on to the next one, and something else rolls over you, and then something else. And you just can't imagine you're ever going to pick yourself back up. You can't imagine light ever re-entering into your life. I was in India, and I watched the man in whom the fates had clearly taken unfriendly interest. I was just walking down the street in actually a very kind of the Carmel, if you will, or the Palo Alto of India. It was just outside of Delhi in Gurgaon. And so all these extremely beautiful homes. But then there's the street life also going on, which is absent nowhere in anywhere of India. And it was morning. We were doing a morning constitutional walk after our meditation and before breakfast. And it was the only time that was reasonable in the heat of the day to be out for us pasty white folk. And especially the Northwesterners. Well, Northwesterners, I mean, just, 80 degrees is toasting. And there was 112, 114 over there. So we're walking along, and it was rush hour. And there were people in their cars going everywhere, and there were people on bicycles and people walking, and it was a fascinating tapestry. But I saw one man, and he was well dressed. But you could see, if you tuned in, you could see that his well dressed was a genuine effort to hold himself in a place. It was not a casual well dressed of wealth. And he was riding his bicycle. And all of a sudden something happened, and his bicycle stopped working. And I wasn't close enough to diagnose what it was, but he got off the bicycle, and he knelt down, and they had that fabulous, but peculiar way of squatting. They just squat, But he just squatted beside his bicycle, and he's just staring at it intently, and then spinning the pedals, as if somehow, if he spins it enough times, something's going to change, and his life is going to start working again. It was one of those unbelievably heart-wrenching moments where somebody was you could just feel they were at the end of their tether, doing everything they could to hold their life meaningfully together, and being to work, being wherever the heck he was going, was crucial to that. They don't have unemployment like we have. They don't have welfare. They don't have the social supports. If you're not working, if you're not out there hustling, you're starving. So it was poignant at more than a superficial level. And you could just see he had no resources left for dealing what was in front of him. The best he could do was spin that damn pedal. And it was just never going to get better. The fates took an unfriendly interest in him in that moment. And bad news, gang, every one of us, the fates are going to take an unfriendly interest in at some point. There is no escape. There is no escape. I don't care how good your life is, or whether it's on an upward trajectory or not. At some point, the outer life is going to go like this. Good news is, if it's going like this, don't worry, because at some point it will also have to go like this. It's built into the story. But the only way out is to go inside, to renounce this as the fulfillment of life, to start to go inside, and to let go of all the attachments to this. To start to spend increasing amounts of time in the presence of God, in the silence of your own soul. Two things happen when that happens. One is the hypnosis of this world and its pains and pleasures no longer have a pull on you, on any of us. But there's something else that begins to happen, and it's not obvious. So the masters, Christ and the other masters, they tell us, they give us a hint. They say things like, God knows what you need before you pray. Take no heed for yourself or for the moment. God will take care of things. The lilies of the valley, they neither spin nor toil, and yet they are adorned as even Solomon wasn't. They try and give us hints that there is a divine flow that has your best interest, in your best interest, in your best interest, in my best interest, already woven into it. And that the things, the conditions of our lives are not broken, they're not mistakes. The very things that you look at, the very things that are so hard for you are a part of the blessing. Underneath their cover is the grace of God, the access to the joy and the freedom and the love you sought forever. But until you renounce the surface, until you, and I'm going to talk you, because I'm working on it. And I know it works. I know the moments where I don't let go. It's not easy. My mother is, I'm going to speak very personally again, if I may. My mother actually, and stepfather, 31 years ago, gave me the autobiography of a yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. If you haven't read it, I encourage it. It changed my life. It finally realized that there was somebody that had visited this planet that knew how it worked and was willing to share guidance and insight and support. She has been a truth seeker as long as I've known her. She is, they were already meditating. We took our first Kriyas together in 1985, I believe it was. I found Ananda. They moved there 6 years later. She is a Nayaswami. She is a founder. She's been central. She and her husband were the mom and pop at the Expanding Light International Guest Retreat when that was all that Ananda had worldwide in service to the world. She was part of the Healing Prayer Ministry worldwide. And on and on and on. She helped found Ananda Center at Laurelwood and has been living there for the last 2 years. And she is probably in the last few days of her life. It is, this story is almost over. This chapter. It's not the story. This chapter is almost over. And it has been a remarkable chapter. And I'm talking about from the time she landed on this planet until now. And it has been filled. We looked at some pictures of her as a young woman in Cleveland and Detroit. And I just looked at her and I said, do you have any idea then that your life would turn this direction? And she just said, I had no capacity to imagine this as a life. And she said, I am so grateful. I am so grateful for the kind of life that this has become. But it's become that through her willingness to realize that she couldn't get it by herself, right? That she couldn't get there. She's really reluctant to let it go. You know, Maya is powerful. Maya is strong. It's supposed to be that way, because otherwise we'd all just meditate and go back to God, and it'd be a very short story. But she loves Laurelwood. She loves God. She loves this path. And, you know, at some level, all of us, if you think about it, we feel a little bit concerned that, you know, if life is okay, that we drew the short straw and we don't know what we're going to draw the next time. You know, it could be a whole lot worse than this, trust me. You know, you could be living on the other side of Portland and it could be a whole lot different than it is right wherever you live. You know, there are places nearby where God's light is not apparent. So, you know, there's always a little bit of concern. Thank goodness for the Bhagavad Gita and the Master's teachings. But we shouldn't treat this life lightly, nor the things that are in front of us given us to do, the environmental issues, the population issues. We shouldn't treat them lightly. But we shouldn't be attached to them. We shouldn't think that getting them right is the answer. They're just things to do to help us grow and learn how to be more in harmony. We should renounce our attachments to having life be a certain way so that we can have it be the way we've always wanted it to be. Is relaxing away from our commitments so that we can experience what's really there all the time. And to come together as we've done this morning in fellowship and truth. To seek God, to reach for the light so that we can do the most necessary thing on this planet. It's not food and energy, it's divine attunement. Because when people come together in friendship, you know, with all their funny little differences that all of us carry, when we come together creatively to solve the issues of this world, what happens? They get solved, but more than that, divine harmony and friendship rules. And life is rich in that no matter the outer circumstances. And without those things, I don't care how many details you get right, it's just not there. I want to read that one more time because picture, if you lived in this, how you would address the issues of your life. And this is just available to any of us through renunciation and self-effort in attunement with Spirit. I attuned my life with thine. Now my life has become a long, unbroken inspiration. Thy fountain of bliss refreshes and delights me night and day, whether I be wakeful, fast asleep, or dreaming fondly of thee. Oh, what has become of me? Delight on overwhelming delight, endless, indescribable thrills of divine delight spray unceasingly over me. O aged nectar, wine of centuries, I found thee at last, and will taste of thy sweetness forever, forever.